Hi everyone, dear digital marketers, marketing executives, social media analysts, and all the ladies and gentlemen present here. My name is Raj, and on behalf of Texila Conference for the Global Digital Marketing Summit, I would extend my warm welcome to all of you. IoT and Future Marketing by Mr. Sterling Hawkins. In a nutshell, the Internet of Things is a concept of connecting any device to the Internet and to other connected devices. The IoT is a giant network of connected things and people, all of which collect and share data about the way they are used and about the environment around them. We have Mr. Sterling Hawkins. Hawkins is a business leader, entrepreneur, and investor living at the intersection of in-store and online. Currently running operations and venture relations for Cart, his legacy is that of a fifth-generation retailer whose family name is synonymous with retail. So, Mr. Stelling, that's for the presentation.
Great. Well, great to be with you guys. It's really a pleasure to share some of this message today. And we'll be getting into IoT and the future of marketing and really what the future of commerce looks like as a whole, because there's a lot of changes coming. And I've been doing this for probably 15 years, and it used to be a lot of software, almost all software. And now we live in a world today where drones are starting to deliver products, purchases are happening in VR, we're talking to bots, whether they're robots or AI. So we live in a world today where more technology is available than ever before, right? And the pace of change is faster than we've literally ever seen it. And a lot of us now are understanding that purchases are happening in virtual reality. We're talking to bots. IoT is a thing. It's in the middle of the market. And, well, we're going to talk about that. But first, we're going to get into the power shift in the retail supply chain and how the power has actually moved. And then I'm going to get into something I call innovation thinking, which is going to really be the backbone of any strategy you're deploying in the space, whether you're a retailer, solution provider, brand, anybody in between. And then finally, I've got some case studies around IoT and marketing and some of the things happening with that stuff today, and some results of some really cool pilots. So look forward to sharing that. Now, I'm actually a retailer. My great-great-grandmother started my family supermarket back in 1934. Technically, I'm a fifth generation. And when I was a kid, and especially when my great-great-grandmother started our family supermarket, retail was different. She knew customers. I knew customers by name. We knew their likes, their dislikes. We could extend credit. If somebody forgot their wallet at home. I mean, I even remember as a kid, we lived about half an hour away from the store. If somebody couldn't make it into that store that day, we could pack up their groceries and drop it off on the way home. And that was before delivery was even a thing. And retail's changed now, right? It's all about scale. It's all about mass. It's all about volume. And we've lost sight to a large degree of what's going on with the individual customer. We're starting to come back to that. And the genesis of it was really loyalty and loyalty programs inside stores. And my family store was actually the first place in the U.S. at least to launch a loyalty program back in the early 90s. And for the first time, we could see what's going on with the individual customers. It wasn't just product data. Now we could see the other half of our business. And from there, we ended up bringing in a ton of different technologies, testing out a bunch of things. And I gotta tell you this story. So I started speaking on this stuff maybe 15 years ago, right? Really built on the idea of loyalty and customer data and where all that stuff was going. And I was speaking at this conference in Tokyo, Japan. And I had prepared meticulously. I knew everything I was going to say. I knew every slide. I knew everything. And as I'm staring out at this room of 500 Japanese men, they're all men, in what looked like the same gray suit and white shirt and red tie, I couldn't even see the room because they were all smoking. And I delivered my first couple of lines. Translator starts right on cue. 30 seconds go by, 60 seconds, 90 seconds. And 2 minutes later, he's wrapping up the translation, and the entire audience breaks out laughing. I didn't tell a joke. So I stumble through the rest of this, find him backstage, and I say, Mr. Numata, hey, Mr. Numata, I was like, what did you say out there that had everybody laughing? And he said, no problem. I told me you were here talking about the future commerce, and, well, you were really here to find a Japanese wife. And I'm like, well, how great is that? Like, my speaking career starts out with that, right? I'll tell you what, I learned 2 very important things that day. The first is, if I'm looking for a date in Japan, Mr. Numato's the guy. The second, and this is really foundational to everything, right? So this is the key point. Here's, if we're going to have the desired impact on our audience, we had better be speaking their language. And today, speaking the customer's language is more important than ever. Historically, it's been the industry leading innovation, right? It started with the advent of modern shopping, where they decided, hey, let's put the products on the shelves and let the customers grab them themselves, and then we'll just check them out. And that was like this incredible innovation in the early 1900s, 1940s. Then there have been other things like scanning, self-checkout, loyalty we mentioned. All of these things, every single one of them, is driven by the industry. Retailers and brands choosing to adopt the innovation or not adopt the innovation. But today, somewhere with the iPhone or around the iPhone, it's actually shifted, where consumers are now taking the perspective of, well, I'm on mobile, and if you want to do business with me, if you want to transact with me, you need to be on mobile too. Or it might be, I'm looking for IoT connectivity in my home. I'm going to use all of those tools, and unless you have a service, a product, a rewarding tool that plugs into that, well, maybe I won't be doing business with you. The language consumers are speaking is digital. Just making sure Subash is right. Yeah. It is digital, right? 53% of the world population is online today. And this stat's from, probably a couple of months ago. So it's probably up to 54% now. Moving really fast. 68% of internet users are doing it by phone. And 40% of those online are buying online, right? So there's just this massive shift going on. It wouldn't surprise me if most of you guys know these numbers already. And I found it helps to actually look at specific things happening in the market today. So take Uber. I think everybody's probably familiar with Uber, right? The car sharing service. Back in 2014, they reached the 1 million rider mark. So across all of Uber, they had 1 million riders. Great success. Come 2017, I think it was like September of 2017, they were up to 5.5 million riders per day, right? So from 1 million total riders to 5.5 million per day in just a couple of years. And you've got things like WeChat Pay, which if you don't know it, I highly suggest you check it out. It's a pay service built on top of a messaging platform, originally out of China and now really going global. They didn't exist, at least they didn't have a pay service in 2013. And last year, they've got somewhere around 600 million users. Again, just a couple of years. Same thing with Amazon Echo. They go from no sales to 31 million plus devices out in the market in no time, right? So these huge transformational shifts are literally happening in months and years. It's no longer a decision scale that happens in decades or in 5 years or, well, that technology is coming. These technologies are here. right? And so you would think, with all these cool technologies out there, that we have this incredible opportunity, right? We must live in this incredible world that brings together the consumer and technology and retail and how all these things are smoothly working together. And, I'm from Southern California, so I'm into the whole yoga thing. I've bought into all of it. And yoga aligns body, mind, and spirit, right? That's what today in retail could look like, with all the technologies, all the consumer engagement, and all the retailers that are out there. But it doesn't look like it. US, Europe, Asia, anywhere globally, retail has not fundamentally changed since the advent of modern retailing in the 1930s, 1940s. It just hasn't. Yeah, we've added things onto that. We have people engaging online, there's e-commerce, there's order ahead, there's IoT reordering stuff, but when it comes down to what the mass of people is doing globally, it's pretty much the same. And here's the proof, right? In 2017, more stores have closed globally now than ever before. Companies like Sears, Teavana, Staples, all closing record number of stores. But there's something very interesting happening here. Well, there have been more stores closed. If you stop and think, we've actually spent years, decades, really from the advent of retailing to say, well, let's put these retail stores around people. And so we have these incredible retail locations exactly where the people are. And actually, the problem is not the physical stores. It's how those things are coming together with technology to service the consumer, and here's the proof. Last year, more stores have opened than ever before in history. So there's this dichotomy of more stores closing than ever and more stores opening than ever before at the exact same time. Now, a lot of it, at least traditional retail or traditional business, is coming up against what I call linear thinking, right? They're looking into the past, literally looking into, well, what did we do last month, last year that we can fix, iterate, change, repeat? And that's a necessary thing. We have to be doing that. But if that's all there is, we're really limited in the kinds of results that we're going to get. What that looks like in some specific numbers is that only about half of retailers, and I believe these are global numbers, less than half of retailers have an iPhone app. That's a pretty important internet-connected device these days. And I would say less than half have an app that actually matters. Only 19% have some kind of mobile point of sale in stores. And it culminates in this thing, it's crazy. We spend 80% of our technology budgets, I'm speaking as retailers now, upgrading existing systems. Literally working on what we already have versus understanding a lot of the tools, technologies, methodologies that are coming out in the future. It's really our job, right? I see it as the job of all of us. Those putting together events like this, retailers, solution providers, all of us, that we come together to transform retail into that low friction, really easily accessible, highly personalized, customer-centric world that I know we all know is possible, right? Now, chess was invented years ago in China, or at least as the story goes, right? And it was the emperor who was bored. So he did what bored emperors did back then. He called in a local game merchant, and he said to the game merchant, come up with a game for me that I'll never get bored with. And the game merchant, not able to use the emperor, accepts, and he goes away, I don't know if it's days, weeks, months, however long it was, and he comes up game chess. He runs back to the palace and he shows the emperor, and guess what? He loves the game. He says, this is the greatest game. I'm never going to be bored again. How can I ever repay you? Game merchant. And he says, well, you'll pay me in rice, because that's how they were paying people back then. And we'll take the chessboard. And on the first square, we'll put 1 grain of rice, and for every square thereafter, we'll double it. Emperor immediately agrees. Like, that is the greatest deal. How much rice can that possibly be? For the game chess. So they, shake hands, draw up the agreements, however they finalize that thing, and they go about adding up the rice. The first half of the chessboard, relatively uneventful. Added up to like a large field of rice. It's the second half of the chessboard where things got interesting. You see, square after square, it's adding up. It added up to over 18 million trillion grains of rice. At 10 grains of rice per square inch, that's enough rice to cover the entire surface of the earth, including the oceans, twice. Now, I told you that story, so I can tell you this, which is the greatest shortcoming of the human race is our inability to understand the exponential function. We all know what the graph looks like. We've all seen like that proverbial hockey stick. But when it comes to how these technologies are manifesting themselves in our lives, it's a totally different story. And technology, all technology, is on this exponential growth curve. If we just take computer processing, right? Because processing is at the center of much of innovation today. $1,000 US processor, back around 2000, buy you the processing power equivalent of an insect brain. Okay, so $1,000 processor, the processing power of an insect. Around now, that same $1,000 US, processing power of a mouse brain, and a few years from now, a human brain, the processing power of a human brain equivalent for $1,000 US. And that's crazy enough. But here's where the exponential really takes off. By 2045, which is not that long from now, $1,000 US processor will buy you the processing power of all human beings alive at that point. It'll be about 9 billion people. When it comes to how that's going to exponentially impact our businesses, what's possible in our businesses, and literally our lives, it's unfathomable. And when technologies come together, I call them combine or compound, that innovation